When it comes to scams, we often hear about a Ponzi scheme or a pyramid scheme. And oftentimes when people hear the two, they get confused. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about what the two entail. What's up? I'm Brandon Young, and on this channel, I teach you how to make, save, and invest money. So if you're new here, consider subscribing and don't forget to hit that bell so you don't miss a beat. I think first, in order to actually talk about these two schemes, you need to know what their origins are. Now, the famous Ponzi scheme was created by none other than the infamous swindler Charles Ponzi. He migrated from Parma, Italy to America with $250 in his pocket, but $1 million worth of hopes. Now, during that time, banks were formed specifically for that Italian immigrant population that just migrated to the States, charging higher interest rates for that specific demographic. The bank, however, did go bankrupt, and Ponzi ended up going to jail based off of a forged check that he put into that actual bank. After being in jail for 3 years, Ponzi came up with a scheme that would create his name in history. He received a letter from a company in Spain that included an international reply coupon, a coupon that can be exchanged for a number of priority airmail postage stamps from another country. Now, Ponzi realized that he can turn a profit from buying these IRCs in one country and exchanging them for more expensive stamps in another country. Ponzi's racket worked like this. He would send money to agents working for him in another country who would buy the IRCs and send them back to the United States. Ponzi would then exchange the IRC for stamps worth more than what he paid for them and sell the stamps. Now, reportedly, Ponzi made about 400% on these actual stamp sales, which is absolutely crazy. And come to think about it, I think this would have been a successful business venture if he would have stuck with it. It seemed pretty legal. It was just him exploiting the system, but nothing illegal about that. But although the venture was successful, he wanted to do more. Ponzi started to go out and find investors for even higher profits. He promised investors outrageous amounts like 50% in 45 days or 100% returns in 90 days. Now, although this scheme was profitable in the beginning, Ponzi was not paying these people out through the returns of the actual business. He was paying these people out with investor money. Now, this might be starting to sound a little familiar to you. A lot of you might be familiar with Bernie Madoff, or you may have heard of the blessed Loom scheme. These are Ponzi schemes, essentially. But Ponzi's manipulation made him very rich. He was reportedly making about $250,000 a day. Now, after a while, the Ponzi scheme did come to an end after the Boston Post started to investigate his returns. And my boy Ponzi, not only did he go to jail for 14 years, but he was convicted of 86 counts of mail fraud. So simply put, a Ponzi scheme is a form of fraud that lures investors and pays profits to early investors with the funds from more recent investors. And the scheme usually leads victims to believe that the profits are coming from product sales or other means, but it's coming from actual later investors. Now, pyramid schemes often start off innocent. It's oftentimes friends, family, neighbors. They oftentimes start off the recruiting process through, in person, word of mouth, over the phone, through email. And pyramid schemes fall under these 3 steps. Now, the first step is the originator. Now, this is usually an individual or a small group of people that put in a small amount of money or no money at all to get involved in a get-rich-quick scheme where they charge the other members to join. The idea is usually to sell a product or service. Usually it's poor quality or fake having a product or service, and convince outsiders to join and charge them to do so. Step 2, we got the suckers. Now, down the pyramid scale, the new investors plow money into the actual pyramid scheme to pay off those old investors. And usually financial accounts are created, profit statements generated, and checks are cut to the investors. This is often done to not raise any red flags and to actually try to show that there's some product being sold and this product was sold and this is why you made this amount of money. At this point, all seems to be on the up and up, although not one single product or service has actually been sold to back up the investment, though investors don't know that yet. In step 3, we have the collapse. When earlier investors in the scheme cash out, there isn't enough money to pay off the rest of the investors that are at the bottom of the pyramid. So when these investors try to cash in too, they find that there is no money left to pay them and the scheme collapses under its own weight. In short, the idea about a pyramid scheme is not actually to have a good product or service, but you're making majority of your money off the recruitment of other people or investors. And you're usually convincing these people to pay money to a can't miss opportunity, and eventually there is no more people to recruit and then it collapses on itself. So going through the Ponzi scheme and the pyramid scheme, you may be wondering to yourself, these sound so similar, but what is the actual key difference between them? Well, there's actually one key difference between the Ponzi scheme and the pyramid scheme, and the Ponzi scheme usually has an allocated amount of money that you're deemed to make back. Now, in an earlier video that I created about the blessed Loom scam, I mentioned that if you put in $100, you would make $800 back. So that $800 would be that clear rate of return, so it would make that a Ponzi scheme rather than a pyramid scheme. Basically with Ponzi schemes, if you put in this amount of money, they say that you're expected to make this amount of money. And with this, you're honestly paying back your old investors with new investor money. So once you start seeing these activities that you're trying to get into, start checking off these check boxes, you can automatically assume that it is probably a Ponzi scheme or a pyramid scheme. And you have to realize coming into these situations, there will always be someone that does make money and there will be those people that lose their money. And just because you were an early investor and you were able to make your money back does not necessarily mean that it's not a scheme, because obviously you were paid on the backs of the newer investors. So obviously there's gonna be somebody that loses their money. But what do you think? Is there any information that I missed? Have you been involved in a pyramid scheme or a Ponzi scheme? Let me know in the comment section below. Watch this video, go subscribe here. I'm Brandon Young, and I'll see you in my next video. Peace.